All right, picking back up at example 7, um, a bit to call out here um, with these two functions. Notice we've got negative 2 to the x and negative 2x plus 3. So something to notice here is that this exponent is only on the 2. It's not on the negative. So this is effectively negative 2 to the x is what we're looking at. Okay, and that's going to be an important piece, right? So for the first part, we're supposed to find the y-intercept for each function. And I'll do this g of x in purple, and I'll do the f of x in red. So for f of 0, we would get negative 2 to the 0, which would come out to be negative 1. For my g of x, if I do g of 0, I'll get negative 2 to the 0 plus 3. So this will come out to be 2. And I'll put both of those on there. 2 and negative 1. Now I'm going to plug in some points for each of those. So for my f function, I'm going to do f of negative 2, f of negative 1, f of 1, and f of 2. And I'm going to do the same thing for my g function. All right, let's start with the f function. So f of negative 2, this is going to be negative times 2 to the negative 2. That's going to go to negative 1/4. Then I'm going to have 2 to the negative 1. That's going to be negative 1/2. This is going to be negative 2. This is going to be negative 4. So I'm just going to go ahead and plot those points real quick. So at negative 2, I'm going to have negative 1/4, negative 1/2 at negative 1. Then I get my negative 1. Then at 1, I'm negative 2. And then at 2, I'm negative 4. And let's see what happens with my g of x function. So when I do g of negative 2, I'm going to get negative times 2 to the negative 2 plus 3. And that would give me negative 1/4 plus 3, which would go to I'll call it 2 3/4. I'll just go ahead and toss that on there. So 2 3/4. Notice how it's just this point shifted up 3. And I can actually kind of use that strategy to keep going. So this would be negative 2 to the negative 1 plus 3. That's going to be 2.5 or 2 1/2. G of 1 would be negative 2 to the 1 plus 3. That's just going to be 1. And then lastly, for my g of 2, I'm going to have negative 2 to the 2 plus 3. That's going to go down to negative 1. Notice how all of these points, the relationship between these graphs, is that they are the same graph, just the purple graph is shifted up by 3. All right. Example 8. Graph f of x is equal to 1/3 x on the grid on the right. Then use the graph to obtain the graph of 1/3 x to the minus 4 plus 2. So first, we are going to find the y-intercept for g of x. So if I do my y-intercept, I'm going to want g of 0. And g of 0 would be 1/3 to the negative 4th plus 2. 1/3 to the negative 4th that would go to 1/3 to the negative fourth would be 81. It's going to effectively be 3 to the fourth plus 2, so that would be 83. Describe the transformation for g of x compared to the parent function of f of x 1/3 x. So let's just graph this 1/3 to the x first. I know at 0 that it's going to cross through 1. At 1 it would be 1/3. At 2 it would be 1/9. At -1 it would be 3. At -2 it would be all the way up here at 9. So here is my regular function. Now, what I can do to graph this, because this 83 is a bit of an issue, is I can just use my transformation. So I see this x minus 4 and this plus 2. So what I'm going to do to graph this g of x is I'm going to take this 1 point and I'm going to scoot it over 4 and I'm going to scoot it up 2. And I'm going to do that with all my points. So over 4, up 2, over 4, up 2, that one's going to be off the page. Okay, over 4, up 2, and lastly my 1/9, over 4, up 2. Oh, let me try that again. So notice here how I shifted each of these points. 1, 2, 3. Oops. Up 2. 1, 2, 3, 4. Up 2. Okay, good. Let's try sketching this graph one more time. There we go. But the thing to notice is this over 4, up 2 that comes from our transformations. And that's what we can say for part B is over 4, up 2. All right, graph the function, label the asymptote and the y-intercept. Describe the transformations from y is equal to 2 to the x. Okay, so we are going to graph this function. Let's do 0 first. So if I did y of 0, I'd get -1/2 times 1. So I'm going to be at -1/2. And then if I did y of 1 would be -1/2 times 1/2. That's -1/4. And it's going to keep shrinking that way. If I did y of -1, I'm going to get -1 times 2. That's going to go to -1. And I'll do y of -2 as well. Y of -2 would get me -2. And -3 would be -4. So the transformations that we have going on here from 2 to the x is a couple things, okay? Really there's 3 different things. We've got this -1/2, and then we've got this 1/2 term as well. So this -1/2, the -1/2 causes a reflection about x-axis. And the 1/2 to the x term causes a reflection about the y-axis. notice that I could write this 1/2 as 2 to the negative 1 to the x, and that would be the same as 2 to the negative x. So from 2 to the x, the two things that we have going on here is a reflection about the x-axis that comes from this coefficient out front, and then we have a reflection about the y-axis that comes from this 1/2 term. Alright, write an equation for the transformation of the graph f of x is equal to 4 to the x, and explain the transformations for each graph. Okay, so for this one, I can spot this out pretty quickly. For x minus 3, this is going to be 3 units to the right. And the way that I would write this is g of x is equal to 4 to the x minus 3. For my h of x, this is going to be 5 units up. And the way I would write this is h of x is equal to 4 to the x plus 5. Okay, when I do negative 2x into my function, if I want to write my k of x, I'm going to get 4 to the negative 2x. And this will do a couple things. We're going to get the negative is going to cause we're going to reflect this across the y-axis. So reflected across y. Across the y-axis, that's coming from this negative. And then this 2, I'll do it in green, this 2 is going to cause a horizontal shrinkage or squeeze. Okay. Lastly, we've got this negative 3 times f of x plus 1 minus 2. Okay, so p of x, if I were to do this to my function, I'm going to have negative 3 times 4 to the x plus 1 minus 2. So a couple things going on here. This negative 3, first of all, is going to reflect across the y-axis. Across the x-axis, reflect across x-axis. This x plus 1 is going to shift left 1 unit. And the minus 2 is going to shift down 2 units. All right, that's it.